department that does not generate income, but we always manage to maintain our positions based on what we save the organization in the long term or other activities. So, what changed and so drastically? How did human resources become the big bad wolf? The first thing that happened was human resources shifted from an employee advocate to a human resources business partner. So there's a stark difference, and here's how it can adversely impact you. So let's rewind. If you had an issue and you went to HR to complain 10 years ago, and you said that your manager was harassing you, human resources at this point is your employee advocate. So they have the empowerment to make high level business decisions, and most often than not, they're actually going to take the time to investigate your claim and determine whether or not it has any merit. If they found that your claim is valid and it's not necessarily something that was so severe, but maybe your manager needed to be put on a performance improvement plan, and they would just start coaching, training. They would do whatever was necessary to ensure that your manager corrected this behavior. If the offense was terrible and it jeopardized or it put the company in jeopardy, what they would do is they would move to terminate that manager. During the course of all this, they would keep you informed. They would only provide you with high level information because they still have an obligation to protect the manager's privacy, and they also have an obligation to protect the company from any litigation. So you're able to continue your employment with no issue. Everyone is happy except your manager, of course. Human Resources also checks in with you periodically just to ensure that you're doing well. They remind you that if anything arises, that you seek their counsel, and they tell you that they have an open door policy and they welcome you to use it at any time because they need to keep a pulse on you, but for all the right reasons. So let's fast forward. You go to Human Resources to complain about your manager, and today Human Resources is your business partner. So the first thing they do is they start the discussion by giving you a disclaimer that any information shared will be kept confidential, but they may have to disclose some of the details as part of their investigation. So you didn't misunderstand me. Ask yourself, how can they maintain confidentiality while disclosing details? What you have to understand is HR no longer has the empowerment to make certain decisions. Those issues are now funneled through senior leadership teams, legal departments. There's all these people who have their hands in this pot. And at the end of the day, none of them are worried about you. They're worried about the company's bottom line and making sure the company doesn't have any blemishes. So, in addition to no longer having the empowerment, Human Resources is also vying for a position and fighting to show their worth on a daily basis because, again, they don't generate income. So your human resources business partner has zero interest in you. It doesn't matter if your claim is true, false, it has zero bearing. They're interested in protecting the company. Not only do they have to protect the company, they also have to protect their interests because the manager you just complained about is their business partner, which means that they value this relationship and how they deal with this person can be detrimental to their career. So the human resources business partner is responsible for making sure that this manager you just complained about is successful. So they have to maintain a close relationship or partnership, and sometimes that partnership requires that the manager delegates to HR delegates to the manager, or vice versa. In some organizations, this manager may also have some stake in that HR business partner's performance review. So ask yourself, if you're the HR business partner, would you jeopardize your partnership with that manager? Would you jeopardize having your performance review impacted, which ultimately impacts your salary? The reality is you wouldn't. So what happens next is your HR business partner notifies the manager that you filed a complaint. They don't just make them aware of it. They sit down with the manager and they discuss the details of your claim, and they immediately go into cleanup mode. Cleanup mode is essentially making sure that everything that you're provided as support, um, any emails, text messages, anything that you have, they come up with the valid reason of why that was business appropriate, or they just outright make it disappear. So what happens is your company and that manager comes out clean. The bottom line is, again, the company matters, not you. And I hate to say that, but it's the reality. So HR will still remind you about their open door policy, except this time it's so that they can keep tabs on you while they determine how they're going to deal with you. They have to determine if you're going to be an issue and if you're truly a threat. If they do determine that you're a threat and the situation is really bad, what they'll do is they might rely on workplace sabotage. And yes, this is a very real thing. There is workplace sabotage, and I'll discuss that in my next video. So if they're not able to get you for performance, what they might end up coming up with is a plan to do staff reduction or layoffs. So you might be selected for a layoff 30, 60, or 90 days after your claim. If they're really bold, they'll just terminate you. And then, depending on the state that you live in, for example, Florida, you'll have limited recourse because, for example, with Florida, it's an at will state. So, the bottom line is if you want to go to HR, I would strongly recommend, unless it's critical, it's going to impact somebody else's well being, or if it's a dangerous situation, my recommendation is to avoid it. If it's not critical, don't pick the fight because you will lose the battle and the war. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for my next video on workplace sabotage. Bye.